The animals decided to hold a contest to determine the smartest among them. Every animal believed it was the most intelligent and was sure it would win. But deep down, they all knew there were only two real contenders, the fox and the weasel. When it came to cleverness and wit, no other animal could compare. It was clear that one of the two would win. As the day of the smartest animal contest drew near, a fierce rivalry broke out between the fox and the weasel. These two clever animals had become enemies. The weasel was doing everything to stop the fox from winning, and the fox was doing everything to keep the weasel from winning. The weasel said, "As long as the fox doesn't win, I don't even care if I lose." And the fox said, "As long as the weasel doesn't win, I don't care who else does." As the rivalry grew more bitter, the fox and the weasel both came up with the same idea: to find another candidate to win the contest. They wanted someone who posed no threat to them, someone so unintelligent that they couldn't possibly win on their own. They searched and searched until they found the perfect candidate, the ox. One morning, the weasel approached the ox, who was peacefully grazing in a lush green meadow. "Hello, brother ox," said the weasel, and began to praise the ox's intelligence. The ox smiled humbly and replied, "Are you mocking me, brother weasel?" The weasel said, "Why would I mock you? Who am I to mock the smartest animal of all?" The weasel tried hard to convince the ox that he was truly intelligent. But he didn't stop there. He also tried to convince the other animals that the ox was the smartest of them all. Soon after, the fox visited the same ox in the meadow. The ox looked at him blankly, and the fox said, "Oh, brother ox, I can see sparks of genius in your eyes." The ox replied, "I may be an ox, but I'm not that much of an ox. I know myself." The fox said, "I swear, brother ox, when I look into your bright eyes, sparkling with brilliance, I get hypnotized. You are clearly the one and only candidate for the title of the smartest animal." To promote the ox's genius, the fox launched an even bigger campaign than his rival, the weasel. Of course, all the animals knew the ox wasn't intelligent, and there was no way he would win. But they pretended to believe the lie, just to make sure neither the fox nor the weasel came out on top. They started going on and on about how incredibly smart the ox was. "Oh, giraffe brother, you know our ox, right? I've never seen an animal as intelligent as him." "Of course I know, ostrich brother. That ox is even smarter than I am." "What do you think, stork brother? If there were a contest for the smartest animal, I'd vote for the ox without blinking an eye." The mountains, the stones, the forests, deserts, cliffs and streams echoed with the animals' praise of the ox. The smartest of all animals is the roo. There's no animal smarter than the roo. Our brightest one is the roo. Faced with all this constant praise, the ox slowly started to believe it himself. He thought, "The jackal, the weasel, the fox, every animal says it. They all can't be wrong, right? So it must be true. I must be the smartest." Then came the day of the big contest. All the animals agreed the ox was the smartest of them all. And just like that, the ox's place, job, role, and status in animal society rose to new heights. Once upon a time, there was going to be a contest among the animals to decide who had the mightiest kick. Without a doubt, the strongest contenders were the horse and the mule. The donkey would often, but in saying, "My kick is strong too." But compared to the kicks of the mule and the horse, no one even mentioned the donkeys. The mule was afraid the horse would be picked as the strongest kicker, and the horse was afraid the mule would take the title. These two animals had been fierce rivals throughout history, locked in a bitter kicking feud. As the contest drew near, they started trash-talking each other. The horse scoffed, "Theft, the mule's kick, please, even an ox kicks harder than that. What do you expect from an animal whose father is a donkey?" The mule snapped back, the horse's kick. That couldn't even squash a fly. Even the ox has a stronger kick than that. The horse went down to the river where the ox was drinking and said, "O wise and mighty ox, you are not only the smartest creature on earth but also the one with the strongest kick." The ox let out a wet splat from his back left hoof, landing in a fresh cow pie, and replied, "Come on, brother horse, with you around, no one talks about my kick." But the horse insisted, "No, dear ox, you could knock out a mule with a single kick. Don't be so modest." After the horse left, the mule came along and greeted the ox. "Respect to the strongest kicker in the world, the great ox." At first, the ox didn't believe the flattery. But when the mule added, "My kick, and even the horse's, are nothing compared to yours," the ox muttered, "Well, I guess I wouldn't know better than them," and started to believe in the power of his own kick. Soon, every animal was convinced they had the strongest kick. Even the rooster thought he could compete with his spurs. And so, all the animals agreed on one thing: they didn't want the title to go to either of the real heavy hitters. The day of the contest arrived. All the animals came together and declared the ox the one with the mightiest kick. And so, the ox, already known as the smartest animal, gained even more respect, status, and responsibility in the animal kingdom, now also known as the one with the most powerful kick. Once upon a time, there was going to be a race among the animals to see who could run the fastest. Every animal, even the turtle, believed they were the fastest runner. But deep down, they all knew the real competition was between the hare and the greyhound. And just like always, everywhere, the strongest and most successful ones were the targets of jealousy, resentment, and envy. So even though they knew the hare and the greyhound were the fastest, none of the animals wanted either of them to win. The hare and the greyhound, the fiercest rivals in the race, had grown to hate each other as the race day approached. The greyhound said, "If I'm not going to come in first, then I'd rather see the ox win." The hare felt the same way. So he went to the ox and said, "Dear ox, you're not only the smartest and the strongest among us, but also the fastest runner, no doubt." The ox replied, "The greyhound thinks just like you." Finally, the day of the race arrived. All the animals started to run. But those who could actually run fast kept tripping each other up, blocking and sabotaging their rivals just to make sure they didn't win. One by one, they all stumbled and fell. They all wanted the slowest runner of them all, the ox, to win, so they cleared the way for him. And in the end, the ox came in first, since he was now seen as the smartest, the strongest kicker, and the fastest runner. His status, position, and responsibilities in the animal society were greatly elevated. The ox became so full of himself, no one could even get near him anymore. Once upon a time, there was going to be a contest to choose the most handsome animal. Every animal thought they were the most handsome of all. But deep down, everyone knew the real beauties were the mountain goat and the deer. And of course, they were all jealous of these two. They didn't care who won, as long as it wasn't the mountain goat or the deer. Even if the ox won and was named the most handsome animal, that was fine with them. As for the deer and the mountain goat, they had started a smear campaign against each other. Each one spread rumors that the other was terribly ugly. The mountain goat said the deer was uglier than an ox, and the deer said the same about the mountain goat. Even the ox looks better than him. The other animals, even though they knew it wasn't true, began to pretend to believe the ox was the most handsome of all. Then came the day of the vote. All the animals cast their ballots for the ox. And just like that, the ox was chosen as the most handsome and beautiful animal of them all. Even the real beauties, the deer and the mountain goat, were satisfied with the result. Once upon a time, the animals were about to choose the fiercest among them. There were two obvious candidates, the wolf and the bird. And by bird, we don't mean a little sparrow, we mean an eagle. There was no creature more fierce than the wolf or the eagle. Still, despite knowing this deep down, every animal thought they were the fiercest. The eagle flew over to the ox, who was lying down chewing cud. "Dear ox," he said, "that foolish wolf thinks he's fiercer than you." The ox replied, "I'm not fierce at all, I eat grass." "Oh no, don't be so modest. You're far fiercer than the wolf could ever be." A little while later, the wolf came up to the ox and said, "I salute the fiercest animal in the world." "You're mistaken, brother wolf," the ox said. "Yes, I might be the smartest animal. Yes, I might have the strongest kick. Yes, I might be the fastest runner. Yes, I might even be the most handsome. But the fiercest, that's not me. You're far fiercer than I am." "No, no," said the wolf. "If you'd like, you can be fiercer than me. I don't mind at all." And then the day of the vote arrived. All the animals unanimously chose the ox as the fiercest of them all. After winning this title, the ox's status, position, and responsibilities in the animal kingdom were raised even higher. Once upon a time, the animals were to choose the wisest among them. Of course, the strongest contenders in this contest were the goose and the turkey. But, as always, once those two started opposing each other, the ox was once again elected the wisest animal. Once upon another time, there was going to be a vote for the most protective animal. Naturally, the rightful winner should have been either the shepherd dog or the guard dog. But even the shepherd dog and the guard dog ended up casting their votes for the ox. Even though the ox said, "I can't even protect myself," that didn't stop him from being elected. After the election, the ox started to believe he truly was the most protective animal. He began to bellow loudly and even tried to bark like a dog. Once upon a time, it was time to choose the biggest animal of all. It was either going to be the elephant or the camel who would win the contest. But even the ant thought it was the biggest animal, so it couldn't stand the idea of the elephant or the camel winning. It wanted someone else to come in first. As for the elephant and the camel, they had turned against each other. The election was held. It was a very democratic one. The ox won the election and was declared the biggest of all animals. From then on, he was so full of himself that no one could even get close to him. Once upon a time, there was going to be a contest to choose the most milky animal. Everyone knew it would be either the cow or the buffalo who'd win. But somehow, even the chickens who had no udders and hadn't seen a single drop of milk in their lives believed they were the most milky animals. Naturally, they were jealous of the cow and the buffalo. Meanwhile, the cow and the buffalo had turned on each other, and in their rivalry, they agreed on one thing: if one of them couldn't win, then anyone but the other should. So they started saying the ox was actually the most milky animal. The buffalo went up to the ox and said, "You're the milkiest animal of all." The ox replied, "You must be confusing me with my sister, the cow. I've never given a drop of milk in my life. I don't even have udders." But the buffalo insisted, "That's exactly why you're so milky. You don't even need udders to produce milk." Then the cow came along and told her brother, "You're the most milky animal, big brother." The ox protested again, "But I don't even have udders. How am I supposed to give milk?" And while saying this, the ox happened to start peeing. The cow saw it and shouted, "Look, look how beautifully you're milking." The ox, confused, said, "What do you mean milk? I'm peeing." And the cow replied, "So all this time, you've been peeing milk, and didn't even know it." Soon all the animals led by the cow and the buffalo started spreading the news that the ox was the most milky animal of all. The hills and valleys echoed with their slogans, "The creamiest milk. Ox milk, no milk is cleaner than ox milk. The ox is so milky, he pees milk, With all this intense propaganda, the ox eventually started believing it too. He even thought his urine looked like colorful, dreamy milk. Election day came. All the animals, especially the cow and the buffalo, voted for the ox. And that's how the ox was officially declared the most milky animal. Once upon a time, it was time for the animals to elect a new president. For as long as anyone could remember, the lion had always been the ruler of the animal kingdom. Everyone just assumed that another lion would be elected again, no doubt about it. But then, the tiger threw his hat into the ring. "It's either him or me," the tiger declared. Still, despite his tough talk, the tiger feared the lion might win once again. So the tiger who once said, "him or me," started saying, "neither him nor me." Hearing this, the lion began to lose confidence. What if they actually vote for the tiger, he wondered. So he also began to say, "neither him nor me." Meanwhile, every other animal wanted to be president, even though deep down, they knew they didn't deserve it. Because every strong, successful leader is envied, the rest of the animals couldn't stand the lion or the tiger either. And that's how the ox was nominated for president. At first, the animals chose him as a joke. They sarcastically claimed the ox was the smartest of them all. But over time, they actually started to believe it. They had already declared the ox the most milky, the most beautiful animal, even though they knew it wasn't true. But once those lies became official, they started believing their own nonsense. So if the ox was already the smartest, the strongest kicker, the fastest runner, the most handsome, the fiercest, the wisest, the best protector, the biggest, and the most milky creature alive, why shouldn't he be president too? Neither the lion nor the tiger had such an impressive list of accomplishments. Even the lion, who had ruled for generations, began to say, "The ox is more worthy of the presidency than I am." As for the tiger, the new challenger, he simply said, "The presidency rightfully belongs to the ox," and left it at that. And the other animals? Well, since they knew they'd never be president themselves, they preferred someone like the ox, harmless and no real threat. So when election day came, the vote was unanimous. The ox became president. Once he believed he really was the president, the ox started acting like one. And seeing him behave that way, the animals began believing it too. The rhinoceros, who was the historian of the animal kingdom, wrote the following in his book, "When the horse and mule fight, it's the donkey that suffers." And in times of chaos, even an ox can become president.